Okay, I'm still waiting on them to sell this thing, so I'm trying to document as much of this as I can in case we don't get to build it. In here on your relief, you're going to want to open this up to 1/4 inch if it's not already done, and this hole also to 1/4 inch if it's not already done. This one probably will be, or real close to it. This one may not be. Also, if you have a pump that does not have these reliefs around here, you're going to want to you can use that same 1/4 inch bit. You're going to want to drill this out in each of these places like this is done right here. And also, if it's not a late cover like this, 690 and I forget 082, or I think it's 082, has a ridge right here for the pump bushing to keep it from walking out. When you press your pump bushing in, you're going to want to go right up to that ridge. Don't just keep going, or when you put the bushing in, it'll crease it and make it too tight. So just get right up to the edge of that right there. If you don't have that and you can't get a pump that has it, a late model pump, and get you a die grinder with a bit on it and just cut you a notch right here and right here and stake your bushing so it doesn't spin. Alright, so your pump seal is going to go in, your bushing's going to come in from this side. Seal's going to go in. They do not come with the seal retainer from the factory, so you can get this and stick that on there. That will help keep the seal from popping out also. There is an O-ring that goes on here. I've already started polishing up the pump just in case we do get to do this. I think we're going to get to, but you never know how people are going to be. O-ring goes on the outside right there. On your pivot pin, there's a spring that goes in right there. You have a rubber that goes on here. This is going to get switched out to an 10 vein. This is an 8 vein that's in here. You got your O-ring, your sealing ring goes on here. Put you some grease to hold that in place. You're going to put your rubber and your wiper in right there. And then your pivot pin. And then your inner and outer spring go on here. And they do make a tool for this. If you want to buy it, more power to you. I just put it in with the screwdriver. It can be a little bit tough, but it's easy enough, and I don't have to buy another tool. Alright, you're going to put a guide ring down. Make sure that they're hardened like we talked about in the teardown. You're going to have your rotor and your guide. It's going to go down on there. You're going to have new veins, so it's not going to matter, but if you are reusing your veins, you can look, you can see where the vein rings have been riding. You want to put that back towards the ring, just like so. If this has a knot, if it's worn where you can feel a groove, you're going to want to replace them. You're going to want to leave your O-ring off while you're lining your pump up. There's a couple ways you can do it. You use a line-up band, wraps around it, or when you get this all together, like I'm going to show in a second, you can stick it down in the transmission case with these bolts right here loose, and grease up your outside of your pump and your case. Set it in upside down. It'll line everything up, make sure your holes are lined up, go ahead and torque it down. Got your guide ring on top. Alright, on your stator, gotta wait for the stator, but there's a anti-rotation lug that presses in right there. Also goes in right here. You're gonna want to use some line-up bolts to line that up, and then press this in to where it's all the way down. You got 3 27 Torx bolts that hold that in. On the back side, when that is in there, there's an orifice that's in this. Well, kind of stuck in there now. There's an orifice that's in that lug right there. Like I said, it goes right there. You're going to want to make sure that that orifice is free, and when your washer goes on there, it's going to sit on there like that, so that orifice can get oil out. Alright, that washer is going to sit on top. On the back side here, let's see where this thing was. I want to say it's right here. Right there. There might be a filter in there that looks like that. You can throw that thing away. On the back side here, 375 thousandths steel ball spring is very stout. The retainer is going to go in here. The spring sits behind that. Just like so. In here we have inner and outer spring. The valve goes in this way. Make sure this valve is super free. This one was really hung up because this converter came apart. And then your washer. And then your snap ring. You want to find the short end of your taper. There will be a taper to the snap ring. You don't want it like that. You want the short end up. Make damn sure that this snap ring is in that groove properly. Alright, there we go. And then we have pressure regulator spring. Some kits have you do things to this valve, like grind a flat on it or grind this all the way off. If you want to do all that, you can do all that. Just make sure that this valve is nice and free. Alright, spring. There are various sizes of this valve right here. You're going to want to measure this land. This is 287, I believe. That's what I would run at least. And this is 268. And we could go a little bit bigger. We could go with a 287 right there. And I probably got one, so this is worn. I don't know if that's showing up on the camera or not. It's worn right down here on that land right there. So put you some grease on there and then pull this up just like so. Put that down on there. This is probably going to drop out when I put it on there. And then the same thing with this land right here. You're going to want to measure it. We got a 471. It's just fine. That's what I would run. I wouldn't go any smaller than that. I wouldn't go any bigger than that unless you're just going to race it. If you're going to everyday drive it, you can go with this. If you're going to race it, you can put a 500 in it. But you're not going to want to put that 500 in there on an everyday driver. Alright, so that goes in that bore. Same thing here. Short end of the taper up. Put your snap ring in, make sure, damn sure it's in that groove. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and leave this off because I'm going to change that boost valve right there, more than likely. If your new stator tube does not come with the bushing, put your bushing in it. Here's the bushing for our pump body. And then it only lines up one way. I'm going to line that up with that right there. Put your bolts in, and I believe it's 18 foot-pounds. I'd have to double check it. Yeah, both these and the ones that hold it to the case are 18 foot-pounds. I'm not sure about 27 torques. Well, it doesn't say, so I'll find out, and it'll be in the slides at the end. Or if I can insert it, I'll insert it. New washers that go on these bolts. I think that's it for this. Okay, we had talked about if your pump did not have that lip, go in here and cut a little notch and then stake your bushing in place. You do want to make sure that it is low enough that when you put this rotor in with the guide, actually here's the old one, when you put the rotor in with the guide, that guide is not hitting on that bushing. Okay, so we need our pump slide. There are different thicknesses, so make sure that you're squared away there. Different thickness rotors and vanes that go with it, so make sure that you do get a match set. Now, a lot of people like to put a 13 vane in here. I wouldn't put a 13 vane. I would only put the 10. You definitely want to get rid of the 8 if you have an 8. And do be careful on some of these. I've been running into quite a few that the rubber and the wiper is too tall when you get it in there. And like this one's too tall. So either use the old wiper or you're going to have to shave that off. And spring. I think we already talked about it. And a pivot pin. guide on. And they did not give me enough vanes. They only gave me 8. So I'm going to have to go hunt some vanes up. And I'm going to have to straighten that out. Once you get your other vanes in there, go ahead and stick that on there. I don't know if I showed you the front. I'll show it here in a sec. You want to put you a seal retainer in. So then you're going to put your cover on. And 13mm bolts, 18 foot-pounds. I'm going to, what I would do is leave this loose, lube up your case, lube up the outside of here and leave your O-ring off. Stick it upside down in your case, and then look down inside these holes. Make sure that you're lined up pretty much in the center. Once you are, tighten those down to 18 foot-pounds. Once you know what your clearance is supposed to be, then your washer is going to go on the lube hole lined up right there. This sets the end play from the pump to the center support. Don't forget to put your O-ring on, and there is a gasket that goes in between. Okay, I've already done most of this one. I'm going to show you how to do the last pinion on this. But on all your planets, you're allowed 9 to 24 thousandths in play on your pinions. So you measure that between the washers here. So there's 9, and it's fitting pretty snug, so there's no way 24 is going to get in there. But you do that to all your planets. Now this one here you can take apart, pull the snap ring out, pull your pin up, and then you can change your washers. You can also put 2 steel washers together if you desire. So you're going to put your brass washer on the bottom, steel washer there. I'm going to put some grease in your pinion here to hold your needle bearings in place. There's 19 of these rollers that go on each one. I think that radio may be just a tad bit too loud. Put that fan on low so maybe it's not quite as loud. Looks like it might be short on one of these other pinions. So I'm going to take that back apart and see which one I'm missing one on. Okay, so you got that like that. Be as careful as you can putting that in there not to push them washers off on the bottom. Line it up the best that you can. Put you a brass washer on top, steel washer on the bottom unless you're running both. And then line that up the best that you can. Get your pin with the notched end up. Alright, once you get this started, you can just kind of push your bottom washers around until they line up. Just like that. And once that's right, turn all of these so that you can get your snap ring in there. And your snap ring goes in that groove. Like I said, I gotta take that back apart, find out which one of those is the missing one. On the Planets here, they used to make what they call quick shims. And it allows you to get in here, and they made these in 15 thousandths and 30 thousandths. You just slide those in there. Like this one would go over on this side. There was upper and lower. And you put those in there. I don't have enough room to get that in there. Put that in there and you slide this around to where this tab was on the inside right here. Right down in there. And then you bend this tab over right here, and that would lock it in place. That would keep you from having to drive these pins out and restaking them and all that. I don't know if they still make these quick shims. I haven't looked to see yet, but if they do, I'll try to remember to put a link in the description. Also, one thing I forgot to mention is that if you are very careful, what you can do is you can pull your pin out just enough that you can get this bottom washer out, put your new bottom washer in, put your pin back in, stand this straight up, pull your pin out, push your top washer off. If you're very gentle, slide your new washer in, and then slide your pin back in. And if you're really lucky, you don't have to drop all your rollers and put them in with grease. You can do it that way and it'll be a lot quicker. Alright, not uncommon for these accumulators to wear out, and the pins also. You can see this pin's getting pretty marked up, starting to get some wear on it. Accumulator also, it's not horrible. This would work for a while. I always replace them. This is the accumulator for the 1.2 from Transgo. They give you a new pin. This pin here seems to be okay, so I'm going to put this pin for the 3.4 accumulator. So that goes on here, and we got D-shaped sealing ring that goes on here. The spring dimensions that are going to be for this spring right here and this spring right here are for the one that was in my Grand National that I'm working on. These things vary so much it's not even funny. So this pin goes in, lube this up, servo goes down into the case, then the spring on top. I got a new accumulator for here. I was hoping it was going to be rubber, Oh, it is rubber. Good. The original is a sealing ring, and it's solid. I cut it in half to get it off. These seal somewhat. What you want to do is when you get it on there, hold your thumb over this, and if you can just slide that thing in there, it's not going to work properly. So put your D-ring onto there, lube up your piston, servo goes on here. There we go. Here's our original spring. Here's the spring that's going to go on here. It's just a tad bit different dimensions than this one, so it's going to be a little bit firmer of a shift. There's a gasket that goes on here. Our plate goes on here. And then we have 10 millimeter that goes on here. 2 10s that go on here. And 2 that go on here. Okay, on your servo, there's 2 sealing rings or butt cut that go on there. There are different length servo pins. There's like a 0, 1, 2, and 3 groove. So 3 groove. You can buy the different pins if you want to. There's a different way to adjust your servo, and that's how we're going to do this one. And we'll get to that when we get to putting it in the case. Your spring retainer goes on here, and then this snap ring. There's no need to take this off. I just did this for documentation purposes. Springs are going to go on the inside here. Springs are going to go on the outside here. There are different sizes of these depending on the servo that you have. You can see that this one is a different size. There's a scarf cut sealing ring that goes on here. Some of your shift kits are going to want you to leave this sealing ring off. It goes in the back of here. On your servo, there's 2 different styles. There's sealing ring style and there's lip seal style. If you don't have the lip seal style, I would recommend that you find one that does have the lip seals, and we'll get to the numbers on them. There's only a few that are really suggested to use. I think if I remember correctly, 692, 694, and 141 are the main ones that you want to be concerned with, unless you want to go buy a super servo if you're going to be racing it, which is what I would recommend. Lip facing down, lip facing up. And in case I forget to mention this later on, I don't think I will, but if I do, this bleed hole right here needs to be up at the 12 o'clock position when it's in the transmission. You got a sealing ring, not sealing ring, you got an O-ring that goes on here. This is a 694. This is the late style snap ring, has the little legs on it. This will fit any case. The early style that did not have the legs on it will only fit a case that has the notches cut at 180 degrees from each other on the transmission. Here's a 692 servo. You can see the difference there. Not a lot, but a little. Main difference is on the back here. and then here's a 569. You can see there's a big difference. This one I wouldn't use, even though it does have the rubbers on it. I wouldn't use this, but in like a real light duty, very small engine, if at all, I probably wouldn't use this at all. You can see, I think this is even a different size again back here. I may be wrong. Yep, it's even smaller. So there's different sizes. Make sure all this stuff matches. Don't just grab pieces of it and throw it together, because it will not work. Let's see, I guess that's it till we get to where we adjust it. Alright, here's our governor. Now there are different gears for your speedometer. This is where the difference is going to be. It's on a tooth count out here. So this one had an orange one. The primary ones I've always seen have always been yellow, red, or orange. I've never seen any of the other colors that they talk about. So on your shaft here, here's a check ball that goes on each side, and you're going to want to put some grease to hold that in place. Probably want to put some green. Get a little bit stouter hold. And there's really not much need to take this apart unless you just want to change the springs. You can change the springs without taking it apart. It can be a little bit difficult, but so can this right here. You can dig these springs out of there. They sit on that right there, and they sit in that pocket right there. So the secondary gear fits. I forgot the sealing ring was on there. I had to mark that because I forgot in the picture I took. So that fits down inside there. Now this other weight did not have a spring on it. And it's been a long time since I've seen one, but I could have sworn both weights always had a spring on it. Trying to get this away from me where it's on camera may be a bit of a trick. Come on, get around that. I'm trying to hold this all together. As you're putting it together is a bit of a trick too. Here we go, got that side anyway, if it will stay there. Not wanting to. Alright, that side's still on. So, will you stay? Let's see if we can get those in afterwards. Alright, so let's go ahead and put our guide on there, or whatever they call this thing. It's got to line up with the holes. The pin's got to go through it, and it's got to go through both of these weights at the same time. So Let's see. You might be sorry I ever took this governor apart. Alright, that goes on the outside. Where'd my ball go? It goes together like so, and our pin goes through all of that. There we go. Whew. What a pain. Alright, let's see if we can get our spring back in there. Alright, I'm going to have to call a buddy of mine to see if he's got a governor so he can check this status of the spring and just how big it is, so I can maybe get one and stick in here. Well, alright, I'm going to fight this spring, and I'll just go ahead and put the rest of this together. I can do that off camera. And then down inside of here, you got to line that pin up, those slots right there. Alright, get your gear all the way down, and you have a washer and then a snap ring that holds that in. See if it goes on that groove right there, if I can get this in. Well, there we go, without a pair of pliers. Alright, don't forget your sealing ring, and that's going to go up in here. Gasket's going to go on. Bolts go in the case, 18 foot-pounds. There is a screen down the side of here. Just make sure it's not full of debris. Don't take that thing out of there. Okay, on your Planet here, you can have plastic or steel sprag. You can have a plastic washer or a bearing. This side faces down. And there's thin and thick of the sprags. This is the thick one. The early one is thin. This goes here. On the back side here, we have a 4-tab washer. You can have plastic or steel washer here. Okay, the washer that was here was pretty worn out, and since they gave me plastic one, the one I had here was steel. And you can see it's pretty worn out. So the washer I had in my hand a second ago went to that one. This one here. The so-so washer. It could still be used again. Hardened shell, make sure it is hardened. It has a kind of a more blackish tint to it, and usually when you grab this, it'll twist back and forth quite a bit. I doubt you're going to see one of the early shells. They should have all been replaced by now. Snap ring here, if you need to change that, keep the taper of your short end of the taper of your snap ring up. We've got output shaft, ring gear, bearing. This side faces in, and our planet sits on here. Okay, once you get this going into the case, our sun shell is going to go on here. Actually, our low reverse housing is going to go on in our snap ring, and our sun shell goes in. On the back side here is our sun gear. The line goes in. The bearing goes with the bearing side in. Then we have our planet that sits on there. Our bearing sits on there that way. Then our ring gear goes on. Then we have a washer. It's going to get replaced. It goes on there. This washer here is selective, and that sets the rear end play here. And our snap ring, short end of the taper, is going to go up. It's going to go on the end of that. Then on the end of this shaft is a selective washer that sets the end play from here to the center support. So I bought a couple extras, different sizes, so I can make sure and get my play up correctly there. Since I didn't change anything in the back here, we got new washers. This should come out correctly. Okay, in your kit, you're going to get scarf cut rings, and one of these should be solid. That one right there. Solid ring goes here. Just use a hose clamp to resize that. Stretch it out and then get it in there and hose clamp to resize it. These others are scarf cut. They're just like so. They go together. They go in these two ring lands right here. These other two are for the forward drum. And if need be, put you some grease on these ring lands to hold your rings in place. I don't know if you can still get them, but if your capsule is not working correctly out here, you can change that. Just bend those tabs, and it's stout. And use you an easy out. You can pull that out of there and drive you a new one in there. Guess I need to measure how deep that is, and I need to resize that. And lock up O-ring for out here. You can go ahead and put it on because nothing's going to interfere with it out here. Alright, we have lip seals here. And I think I just threw my snap ring away. Nope, wrong seal. Alright, lip facing up towards you. And if I forget to mention it, on every one of these pistons, this ring is just pressed onto here, so they do have a tendency to come loose. Just go ahead and get you a center punch. This is a self punching center punch, and just punch you some areas around there. You can see right there. Do that to every piston. Make sure that it is down. If this lip seal is flopping around in there, it's not down far enough. You don't want it so tight that you can't get the lip seal out, but you don't want it flopping around in there either, so make sure it's down where it needs to be. Go ahead and lube up your lip seals. This is a snap-on drawer lock tool. This is what I use for a lip seal tool. You can use feeler gauge, you can use a piece of looped wire, just whatever you need to use to get your lip seal in there. This one is probably going to be your most difficult one. Go. Alright, I have a return spring or a retainer. You're going to have to make sure that's kind of centered as you're going down. Go ahead and replace your sprags, both of them. These little feet face down. Your cam sits on top of that. And this goes on here. Press that down. You can probably do it by hand. I'd do it in the foot press. And then put your snap ring on, short end of the taper up. This is not the snap ring, but this is not easy to tell, but it has a taper to it. You want the short end of the taper up. You don't want it down like that. You want it up like that. A little easier to tell on this one. Let's see if I can just put it on by hand right here. There we go. Put a steel clutch, steel and clutch. No, I don't soak my clutches. Go ahead and soak them if you want to. I've never seen a difference. The word up faces up. Snap ring. Our planet. Oh, nope, need our sun gear. And bevel up on our sun gear. Our planet. And I gotta get this resized. I can do this after because it sits up above. Snap ring goes on the back here. Short end of the taper up. That just sits on there like that. Now on our ring gear, we have a bearing. This side faces up. And that's going to sit on there. Okay, once you use your hose clamp to squeeze that back down a little bit, as long as your old stator, or you can even use your new stator, see mine's eat up out here, it's not eat up in here, so I can use this as a ring sizer. And I have to just take my hose clamp off, put this on there, give it a few spins around, up and down, and then just leave this and let it sit on there until we're ready for it. Okay, down inside of here is a lip seal. This lip is going to be facing up towards you, and it's the only lip seal in here that has those scallop cuts on it, like that. That lip facing up. Now, if you're going to dual feed your reverse, you want to leave this one out, but if you're not dual feeding it, you got to put that in. And if you are going to dual feed your reverse, you're going to want to put a billet drum, forward drum in it. Alright, make sure that that lip is not rolled anywhere. And lube that up. Oh, I forgot to mention, when we tore this thing down, you're going to want to check the surface of your drum right here. Get you some kind of straight edge, stick across there, and if you can see light underneath it and you can see a dish, then your drum is no good. Also, if these are not as bad as the 700 is about flaring out, but these can flare out. You want to put your sun shell on here, make sure that these aren't flared out outside. Make sure your check ball is loose inside there and rattling. The lip's going to face up towards you. Here again, go ahead and stake that in place. Go ahead and lube that all up. These rings for the direct forward and the low reverse, they do come off, so make sure that you get the right one in the right spot. I always keep them together, but on the Patreon side will be all the measurements for all that stuff. Alright, on your cage spring guide, this has to line up with that bleed hole right there. And I'm not going to put this drum together just yet because we do have a shift kit coming and these springs are going to get replaced. So that does go onto there. The short end of your taper, you can see this has got a good taper to it. Short end up, you want the opening away from these nubs. You want it sitting over in there somewhere. Bottom steel, you have cutouts. Keep all those cutouts together. Alternate steels and clutches up. The rounded side down, and then your snap ring goes on top. Alright, lip seals, lips face towards you again. Stake your piston in place again. Lube all this up. The ring comes off again, like I said. Spring cage, short end of the taper up again. Now this snap ring and the one of the other snap rings is real close. The larger one goes here, and you want the opening away from those nubs again. We're going to put it in the center of it, just like so. Just like that. On the bottom steel, this one is a wavy steel. It's okay to put a clutch on it. It's the way it comes. If you have cutouts, again, you're going to want to keep them together. Pressure plate goes with this bevel up. And snap ring. Have the washer. And we got 2 sealing rings here. Go ahead, they are scarf cut just like the others. If you need to put grease in the groove, go ahead and do that. Okay, I put the inner lip seal on the direct drum. They're real close to each other. This one is slightly larger, so make sure that you do get the right one in the right spot. Lip faces towards you again. Go ahead and stake it in place again. Bushing's pretty critical about where it sits. If you don't get it in far enough, then it's not going to be in the right position. If you go too deep, then you're not going to be able to get your tool in to work this thing. It won't, you won't be able to get it in there. Lube all that up. People talk about worrying about whether these bristles come out of that brush. Very seldom do they ever come out. You do have to keep an eye on it. Every once in a while they will. I've been using that brush right there for, I don't know, at least 15 years. And it's still in good shape. You just get you a good quality brush that you don't have to worry about that stuff coming apart so much. And it's going to last you forever. Alright, got the return spring there. This sits on here this way. Short end of the taper up again on our snap ring. Our apply ring. This goes down into the case, the bevel of our snap ring. It's going to face up and it's going to go on here. We can go ahead and put our tool on. It goes into the case. We're going to alternate our clutches and steels. Cushion plate goes on top. After that's in there, this snap ring goes in. Center support sits on top of that. Alright, lip seals, lips face down. This one goes on the inside. Make sure that it is not rolled. You scribe with a hook on it and just get up underneath the lip. Make sure it's right. Alright, this one, the lip faces to the inside, so, or the outside. So make sure that your lip seal is correct. It's kind of an opposite of what most of them normally are. Alright, we're going to leave our piston out for right now. You can go ahead and lube this up. I'm going to wait till I get it in the case. There is a washer, 2-tab washer. It goes on here. And then that overdrive. This is fitting kind of tight. Well, maybe having to bend these tangs out a little bit. Anyway, that washer goes right there. This washer goes on the back. You got 3 sealing rings that go on here. Your hook and loop go together just like so. I'm going to try these in your direct drum, and make sure that they fit nice and tight. They don't just drop in there. Just open these things up just enough to get them on there, because they will crack. And to get them on, just kind of push in on one side and up and around and hook it in. Kind of hard to show that on camera because I need it facing towards me as I do it. Let's see if we can get this on camera. There, just like that. Okay, when we get this in the case, bevel snap ring, bevel faces up. Then our pistons are going to go in, if I remember correctly. It's sitting that way. Then our snap rings are going to go on, short end and taper up. Then we're going to alternate our steels and clutches. A little hot spot right there is not going to hurt much. If it hadn't been much worse than that, I would replace these steels. Then you're going to have 2 steels together and another clutch, then your pressure plate and a snap ring. If you want to add an extra clutch on here, you can add it between these 2 steels, and you're going to want to shave off 80 thousandths from here. You want to have a lathe and get it square. Personally, I wouldn't dick with putting an extra clutch in there. It don't get you too much. Then when you get all that in, this is going to sit on top, and the pump sits on top of that. And 2 bolts hold this into the case. If you're dual feeding this, let's get this correctly. I believe it's this one that gets plugged off. Do not do that unless you're dual feeding your reverse. Alright. They did not give me my 10 vein kit, so I don't have that yet. I don't have the servo I'm going to put in it yet. I think we are at a standstill until that stuff shows up. Seems to be awfully glary, so I don't know how well this is going to come out. Your linkage goes on your rooster comb just like that. This spring sits on your park pole just like that. The legs of this spring are going to sit right down here on the back of that ledge. And then your pivot pin is going to go through that from the outside. Right there. Here's a cup plug that goes on the back of there. And there's a roll pin that goes in that hole right there. And I'm probably going to put some silicone in there to help seal that, because that came out really hard, and I think it's probably opened that hole up some. So probably don't even need the roll pin if you're going to put silicone in there to help seal that off. While we are here, we will go ahead and put our case bushing in. Selector shaft and our linkage. And our nut, the self-locking part of it facing inward. That is a 15mm nut. And when you're taking this selector shaft out, you probably have to get some fine emery cloth. Sand that down a little bit, because it's gonna, when you tighten this down, it kind of puts a ridge on it, makes it hard to get it out. There's a slot in that selector shaft this nail holds. You don't have to get radical about putting that thing in there, just as long as it's below where the pan goes. We have this piece goes on the back side of the linkage here, and the S clip is going to go on our manual valve and go into here. I'm going to leave the S clip off right now. It's just going to fall off. And I always put it on when I put the valve body down. It sits in there just like so. have our guide. This sits in there just like so. This park rod has to go behind the park pawl, of course. $18 foot-pounds on these 13 millimeters. And then our lever seal goes in this way. You're going to want to get a pocket screwdriver. You can put this in before you put your selector shaft in if you want to. Just get you a pocket screwdriver and get it up around those flats, get it up around there, and then you can drive it in. The tool, you can get these off any tool truck. Okay. Alright, we're at a standstill till we get our other parts. I guess we can talk about the speedometer. The early ones had a snap ring that held the seal down in here. This has got the late style, like the 350 ones that they started selling to help keep them from leaking. Just pushes in the front right here, O-ring right here. And I had a hell of a time getting this out of there. And then our speedometer gear goes on just like so. Goes up inside of here. Let me go get one of those seals. Hopefully this camera doesn't die before I get back. 44078A from TranStar. So you just get a screwdriver in there, pop that out, and you can use pretty much you can put these in by hand. If it doesn't go in by hand, just push it in as far as you can and get you a socket that fits around that and tap it in just a little bit further below flush, or you can put it in with an arbor press, which is what I do. Alright, camera's gonna die and we can't do anything else anyway, so we'll continue on later. Okay, there's a special tool that they make, and I don't really have the piece for the 204R. This is really for the 200, but I can make it work on a 204R. This really needs to bolt up here, and it's not deep enough when you do that for this to get to there. So I run it off of here, run me an extension here. The way I used to do it before I had that tool and a 350 accumulator, and we'd leave the rear seal in there, shove that up in the rear seal because that would hold it, and then stand it up on its tail and stack it up like that. But then you kind of really need somebody to hold it. Okay, so recap, we got our ring gear with our bearing, that side facing up. We got our washer and our sprag assembly. It's going to sit down in there. And that's probably too tall right now. I'll have to work it back down when I get ready to put my center support in. You have our steels. We have this cutout right here. It's going to face the 12 and the 6. And I know if I'm too tall right now. I know I am. Because my clutch will not be on my hub. Yeah, it'll probably work right there. Camera's kind of in the way. Alright, our cushion plate on top. A thin snap ring. Alright, something's sitting crooked. Center support with our feed hole at 6 o'clock. Alright, opening at about the 2 o'clock position. See if we can do this without hitting the camera. Yeah, it really needs to be up some more. I may have to move this back so I don't hit the camera and move this snap ring. Okay, washer on our sun shell, sun gear with the ID mark down, bearing with the open face down, planetary bearing with the black side up. Ring gear, washer, our selective shim, 7 to 24 thousandths on your rear end play. I'm going to screw up on that. Put our snap ring in. And then check our end play. That's going to take me a little bit, so I'll be back when I get that done. Alright, you're going to need your adjustment washer for there. Go ahead and put your band in with this side facing over there. Your anchor down here. Drum assembly in. Put your anchor in your band. Make sure it gets in that hole of the band. Now you can go ahead right now and do your servo checking and set your servo travel. I use that to put it in, and I can tell you right now I'm too tight, so I'm going to get my adjustment set up. You might even want to put your center support in there to keep everything supported, but I gotta get that straightened out. And slightly off anyway. That may be part of my problem. Here we go. I'm still going to be too tight. Yeah, still going to be too tight. So you get this straightened out, and we'll go ahead and talk about this. You can go ahead and put your center support in and set your end play for this section in here. Make sure your feed ports are down at the 6 o'clock, and your snap ring goes in, opening at about the 6 o'clock, and bevel up. Your end play in there 7 to 24 thousandths. Alright, snap ring about the 2 o'clock position, 18 foot-pounds on your bolts. I did have the play wrong. That's 4 to 25 in the back, 22 to 51 in the center, and it's 4 to 27 in this section here. So lube up your seals. You want this tab to be in this right there, right about the 4 o'clock position. Well, it'll be in snot. Alright, your return spring, and then your snap ring, short end of the taper up. See if we can keep from hitting the camera. Got our 2-tab washer. The one that they gave me in the kit is way too small, so I'm reusing the old one. It's still in really good shape. It's in the right thickness, so we're okay there. Our ring gear with our bearing on this way. Our over-run assembly. Alright. Our steels and clutches. 2 steels here. Pressure plate on top. Oops. Wrong way. And about the 6 o'clock position down here. Make sure we're fully supported. And then our plate here. Go ahead and lube that up. And our pump gasket is right here, right there. Alright, you can put your pump assembly in there like so. Make sure that your holes are pretty much centered up. And tighten down your bolts, 18 foot-pounds, and take your pump back out. Alright, you just use an H gauge here. Don't forget to put your gasket on. Set your measurement and check your measurement on your washer. And you should be good to go. Alright, line up your feed ports at the bottom there. Put your new washers on your bolts, and your bolts are 18 foot-pounds and 13 millimeters. Alright, I think when I was showing the linkage, I showed this putting this on wrong. So this portion goes over here. Park pawl goes behind it. This goes in front of the park pawl. And then your 213s go on. And 18 foot-pounds for that. Alright, we got check balls there, 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 and there. Now this one here I'd recommend that you leave out, and especially if you have lost this thing right here, because if you've lost this and you put that ball in there, it's going to shift super light no matter what you do. And if this doesn't work properly, it's going to shift light no matter what you do. So I'd just leave this ball out. Put your accumulator pin in. Put some lube on your accumulator. And your spring. You got this seal, the rubber side goes down. They make a tool to put it in with. You don't have to have it, but this keeps you from smushing it. It'll stop you from just keep going. You just need to make sure it's up against that support. Alright, we didn't talk about it, I don't think. There is a seal on this governor sealing ring. Just get the new one and just roll it around there and then kind of mush it in. And use your cover to resize it and it'll be okay. Put your governor in. And your gasket. .13 millimeter bolts, 18 foot-pounds. Alright, make sure you got the C for case, and do go ahead and make sure none of your holes are blocked. Sometimes these gaskets can swell. And if they do, you can throw them in the microwave sometimes, and sometimes it'll make them shrink up just a little bit. Alright, valve body gasket goes on next. And this is a lineup bolt. And this is a lineup bolt. I think we talked about it. Guess we might as well go over it again. We have our plate, short bolt, gasket, accumulator, and our spring. 2 long bolts, 2 medium bolts. Alright, these bolts are torqued to 8 foot-pounds, be 96 inch-pounds. New O-ring on our pass-through connector. There is a notch in your case that lines up into. Since we're putting an aftermarket lockup solenoid on, we have 2 studs that go here. Normally the lockup solenoid just go in, and you got 2 short tins that go right here. And don't forget to put grease on your check balls. Don't worry about that spring falling out. That's for a shift kit part of the video I'm going to do at the end. I should have pulled that out. Alright, make sure that it is right. You can't really screw up the valve body bolts. It's only short and long. The long ones will be way too long for the short ones. Short ones won't fit where the long ones go. And don't forget to change your lockup O-ring and lube it up. And I have a bracket that goes right there. It's one tight fitting an electrical connector. Okay, you got your bracket that holds your tube in and your detent. Make sure your detent is centered into your rooster comb. You got your S deal. You can leave this out if you want to because there's nothing there anymore. Otherwise, this part of it goes into that hole that's in your valve body. $13mm on your lockup solenoid, since we're putting an aftermarket one, otherwise it would have had those 10mm bolts. All this is 8 foot-pounds. This bolt right back here. We have this bracket. Sits on there just like that. Push your bracket over against the housing and tighten it down. Lube up your seal on your filter. Put your filter in. Alright, pans are notorious for leaking. Not so much on the case side, it's on the pan side. So I would silicone this gasket to the pan side, 9 foot-pounds on that. Here's an O-ring on your speedometer. Here's the seal pressed into the front. The speedometer gear goes on. It goes on. Lube up your O-ring. Your bracket holds in your speedometer right there. And then 10mm bolt goes onto that. Put your rear seal in. Oh, we got 2 more seals to show. We got our filler tube boot and our boot for our throttle cable. Helps if you put them in the right hole. And then we are done with this unit.